Good morning. Today I'd like to talk about starting spiritual practice. I first started a spiritual practice when I realized that I enjoyed doing certain things every day, that they were helpful to me. Certain little rituals, little breath techniques, things that were important to me, and I wanted to do them every day. I was getting into Nam yoga at the time, so I went on to the Nam website, and it described how to put together a basic Nam practice. So I want to talk a little bit about more of a universal aspect of putting together a spiritual practice, meditation practice. First off, this can be essentially anything. So the first most important part of this is that we're putting aside ritual time. So creation of ritual time is the first step and the most important step in that sense. We're creating a time that we're dedicating. And so this can be, 5 minutes that we dedicate to reading, poems or something like this. It's totally fine to do something like that. And the goal is that we'll be increasingly expanding our awareness. From whatever part we start, we're going to increasingly expand our awareness. So finding the time that you actually have during the day, finding the time that you can create during the day is the most important part. Part of the matrix is that we're not supposed to have enough time or energy to have a spiritual practice. This is why a lot of yoga teachers these days say that if you can meditate and do yoga every day, that's amazing, because we live in a slave matrix that tries to prevent us from having energy to do that kind of thing. Anyways, so we want to create space within ourselves, and create a regular time is really helpful. Not so much the mind fixation of a time as just when is it going to fit in our schedule. We all have a lot going on. So creating the time to do that is really important. And then it's just sitting down and checking in with ourselves. It's finding how we're most comfortable. We're going to be doing this a lot. We're going to be doing this more and more. This is going to be a big part of our lives. So we want to find how it's going to work for us. It's a combination of finding comfort. Meditation stools can be great. Just a comfy chair. Straight spine. So we're going to want to set aside space. We're going to have somewhere we're going to be comfortable and not need to worry about moving around or adjusting position too much. We want to be really focused for a long period of time. And then straight spine. So we want to do this in a way that we can have our spine be very straight, and that we can adjust and correct and make it straighter when needed. So we don't want to be too locked into any one position. Gently sitting on a pillow on the floor can be really good, but it can be difficult for some people's knees, so chairs and meditation stools are all fine. So once we've cultivated the physical space that we need for this and set aside the time, then we're going to want to check in with ourselves. And that means basically just start a practice of self-review. I'm going to say, oh, wow, I finally made it to my meditation. Great, I'm doing this. This is awesome. How do I feel right now? What am I thinking about right now? And then we can start with there. We can do a couple minutes of just tracing our thoughts back and kind of dissolving our thoughts by examining them. Or we can go straight into a routine. And my favorite is the Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. I open to the universe. I open to what the universe has to give me. I open to receive. I ground into my connection. This is a really good opening ritual. So this is where I reaffirm my commitment to studying everything in the universe and wanting to know more and wanting to learn. So I start my spiritual practice by grounding in and saying, yes, I do want to know more. Yes, I want to keep going. This is the most important thing to me. No, I don't want to stop. And Nam Yoga talks about 11-minute meditation sequences, and there's a lot of philosophy behind that. It's a good amount of time. I think one of the base reasons they give is that after about 10 minutes, our glandular system adapts to vibrations that we're creating. So at 11 minutes, our glandular system has really absorbed what we're doing, the mechanics, the mechanical vibrations of what we're doing, and the energetics. So it has a stronger physiological effect when we do it for 11 minutes. A longer is fine too, but we want to get through a number of different sequences, so 11 minutes is a really good time. I can set a little timer, eventually just become really familiar with what about 11 minutes feels like. After a month or two, it's not so hard. So we're going to find our opening chant. Again, you don't have to use Om Namo. This is one that I like. It was given to me through the Nam Yoga practice. It's the common opening for Nam Yoga. And then we want to start adding meditations that feel really empowering and strengthening to us. So we want to go through and practice. We want to go out to local classes. We want to ask our friends, ask teachers, learn some mantras, see if they feel right. We're doing ancient language stuff. We're doing stuff that resonates with the core sounds of the universe. We're dialing into advanced frequencies. So we want to play around until we find something we really feel, because there is such powerful meditation out there that we don't want to settle for something that's boring or routine. We don't want to just try something for the sake of trying it. We want to find something that ignites our passion. Not sexual, but it should have a similar level of volume to sexual attraction. When you find a meditation when we find meditation we really like, we're drawn to it. We want more of it. We think about it. This is how I've experienced it. So when I have a piece of my meditation that I'm doing out of routine and I don't feel like I'm benefiting much from it, maybe every once in a while I feel it, where I used to feel it all the time, I like to review and say, okay, is there something I'd rather be doing, or did I learn something new I want to include more of in my practice? And I kind of let my practice organically shift around a little bit. The pieces that I really like tend to stay the same. They're so good. But I do like to continually try new things and adjust and have some variations. So breath work is another way we can integrate this. So the breath of fire, I've talked about that. This is a great way to tone our lungs and our diaphragm and warm ourselves up, and any kind of singing or chanting is going to be much more potent and resonant afterwards. Also cultivate a lot of energy to give, so it'll be very, very strong, very full of chi. Then that's kind of a warm-up. The breath of fire is kind of a warm-up. After I've done the gentle warm-up, that's more stimulating warm-up. And then after each meditation, after each breathwork sequence, after each chanting sequence, I like to do a 3-part breath, again taught to me in Nam Yoga, as a way to circulate the energy that's been cultivated. So after meditating and cultivating all the specific energy, connecting with the universe, opening to the universe, whatever it is, a 3-part breath allows us to really focus on taking oxygen in very slowly, and then holding it and allowing that oxygen to disperse itself, and then slowly exhaling. And this gives a whole sequence in which the energy can circulate through the body. The gases from the oxygen and the other gases can have a chance to really settle into their place in the body, and it helps integrate. It's a good integration time. And then after recovery breaths, as one yoga teacher put it for me, after we do pranayama, we take recovery breaths. So as soon as we're done with the pranayama, we go into just a natural relaxed breath until we find our balanced state. And then we can try to be still in our thoughts, still in our feelings, just resting in the feeling of what was just cultivated for as long as we want. I mean, if we really like a chant, we really feel it got us there, we might just want to drift into integrative space for half an hour after that, then just be in meditation and a stillness meditation for half an hour, just because we reach such a great state. Or we can launch into the next thing after a moment of silence, or after a little period of integration. So there's the 3-part breath, finishes up every meditation. There's the breath of fire, which is good for stimulating and getting things going. We add the different pieces that we like. I like to cover a couple different bases. I like to grounding and opening is a really important one. Gratitude is a really important one, but not so much being thankful. It's more activating the heart. So being in loving curiosity. I try to activate my loving curiosity. Like, wow, waking up in the morning is amazing. Like having a whole day, every new day, I'm rested and I feel great. It's amazing. Like the sun comes up, getting to experience the sun coming up, it's great. So anything that's going to bring me into that awe state, I try to have a meditation around that, because it's amazing. I do that at the end of every day. I lay down before going to bed. I lay down on my back and I'm just like, wow, I have all these cells and they're all happy to be alive, and this feels amazing. So I try to do that, early in the day as a formal meditation, and at the end of the day with my laying down practice. I really like that one. So we're going to want to add a couple other components. We're going to want to add some guidance components. Most people can benefit from guidance. I see guidance as calling to our higher self, calling to our allies, maybe angels, maybe our future self, maybe, any option, aliens that are hanging around to help us, built-in support codes to the Earth. The Earth has a lot of magnetic stuff, so there could just be, support codes, and we can just dial into these support codes and say, hey, Gaia, I'm needing a hand with this. Can you send me some of your energetics for this frequency and help me out here? So I have all different kinds of theories of who we're calling. When we're calling for our support, when we're calling to our allies for support, it can be a number of different different things. And who it is doesn't really matter. The fact that we have allies and we can call for them, and this is an energetic thing that people have been practicing for thousands of years, is tangible. So we don't need to worry about the details. We can study the details, and we can be curious about the details and absorb and learn more about the details. But I'm more focused on just getting results and expanding rather than knowing all the little details. So another big piece is we want to reaffirm our connection to our self-study and thus all of study. Because when we study ourselves, we study the limitations that we put on ourselves, and we study the limitations that other people put on themselves and that we collectively put on ourselves, and we start to figure out how to remove some of these limitations. And this is what self-study is, that the nature of the universe is infinite and expanding and beautiful, and we are part of that, and our perception of that tends to get in the way of what it actually is. So the more we can do review and self-study and examine our thoughts and feelings, so I like to have a formal practice of this. It's good to have just like throughout the day to be doing this all the time, a self-study and a self-review, but I like to have as part of my meditation just a little window where I allow myself to kind of check in. Gayatri is kind of a version of that, because it's kind of looking at the awe and mystery of the universe. It's saying that I want to forever learn more, and that there's so much richness and depth around me, that the answers are all here. The answers are all within us, because within us is everything, because we are an aspect of everything. We are a fractal. And so literally on a scientific level, we can be accessing the universe through ourselves from a fractal holographic paradigm. And this takes the form of spiritual practices. So when you talk about advanced spiritual practices, these are the advanced forms of physics. We are using our amazing generating tools of our bodies and our minds, our electrical systems, to play with this advanced scientific reality that we know from science that we live in, but the Matrix tries to pretend doesn't exist. Say, oh yeah, look, it's so amazing, but it's only for movies. Only movies get to have fun and do amazing stuff, or only yogis in India, or only monks in Tibet get to do this fun stuff. No, we're all human. We all get to do this stuff. Like if we just practice it, we get better at it. We live in a culture of suppression and pain and suffering. So all we have to do is ignore the suppression and pain and suffering and say, I'm going to do what makes me happy, and I'm going to try to find a way to make it sustainable, because the Matrix wants to kind of tear us down all the time, wants to tire us out and make things difficult repeatedly and get in our way repeatedly. Mr. Smithing, having people pop up and say, hey, you're showing too many signs of freedom and personal love, and that's not acceptable within the Matrix. Where people getting mad because of the system, people wanting to enforce the system, people feeling like they're less than and wanting to bring someone else down because they're feeling down. This is what the Matrix thrives on, as the crabs in a bucket. The Matrix is best summed up as crabs in a bucket. Somehow, these people put these buckets down and told us all to get inside it, and told us to not let any of us get out into the light of consciousness and the bliss and joy of helping each other. We've been conditioned to stay in our bucket and to blindly grab and yank down at anything that's trying to get above, anything that tries to rise in the Matrix and go upwards towards more, where the Matrix teaches us to grab and hold on to, blindly flailing, grabbing, pinching, squeezing, to not let anything ascend. So we need to clear boundaries, and we need to find safe space, and we need to go into nature and regenerate, and we need to do all these things we can to integrate, because we've got a lot going on. If we feel called to just go out into nature and have a nature experience and have that be our life for a while, I know a lot of people do that. I've talked to a couple people about that. They basically say they don't want to come back. Like, people might call them homeless, and they call people that lives in towns crazy. They're like, I don't want to live with a bunch of people that are mean to each other. I can go out and meditate in nature and eat fruit and nuts and seeds and meditate all the time. Why would I want to go back to living in a house? So some people that are homeless are actually had spiritual awakenings, and just they don't want to go back to a system of cruelty. They want to be in love with everything. So we can try to cultivate, part of our meditative practice can be doing this meditation routine in nature. So we're going to do it wherever we can. I do it in my car before work part of the time, or wherever we can, but we want to do this in nature, where it's going to have a much more magnified, amplified effect, more more than the amplification is, it's not going to be drained. So when we're in our regular environments, our environments are leaching from us and sucking from us. Our environments are so in need of loving support that they take from us. So when we're doing our meditations, we're often counterbalancing for the fact that there's noises coming in. There might be someone about to interrupt us. We just know all these different things. So dropping all the way in takes a lot more effort, and we're just not all the way in because we have all these little things we have to be aware of. We have to be aware of certain emergency situations or certain time critical things. But when we are able to go out into the nature, into the woods or the desert or wherever it is, and just do our regular routine for however long, then we get to feel it in a tranquil environment that's not taking from us, that is in fact giving to us. So we've got the magnetic fields of the plants around us that are acting in support, drawing away toxins and bringing in fresh energy, instead of things that are harming our energetic field and taking and draining our energetic field. So it is just amazing going out into nature and doing a spiritual practice. Okay, so we want to be including different components that are important to us. So we want to be grounding in, having our warm-up time, including breath of fire or other breath work or pranayama. I'll explore some other types later. 3-part breath. I'll go over that more later too. So we want to have a closing ritual. So we want to, first off, 11 minutes is a good point, but I like to kind of end a meditation when I feel it, when what I'm looking for. If I'm looking to open to the universe and ground in, I want to feel that. I want to be like, okay, I'm in awe, I'm in joy, I'm ready to learn. And when I'm doing my Gayatri, I want to be like almost on the edge of tears of how beautiful the universe is. Like, wow, I can just, it's just learning is so beautiful in itself. Like that's one aspect of what Gayatri means to me. So that's another point when we know we're about done with that chant, or we can be done with that chant and move on to the next. And then concluding the actual routine, the actual practice, we want to find something that is some meaningful way to do this. So prayers and affirmations are really good to do at the end, because we built up all this amazing meditative energy. So whatever we say is going to be really potent. It's going to go deep into our psyche. So we tell ourselves that we love ourselves. We tell ourselves that life is a series of accomplishments. Our life is a series of overcoming challenges. So life is a series of solutions, of creativity and solutions. We can, build our framework. Say, this is the way that I see the universe. Maybe my emotional body and my intellectual body don't catch up all the time. So I want to ground this in and say, yes, I love getting up every day and I love doing this every day. There might be some things about my life I don't like, but I love doing this. This is amazing. So less just unconditional love and joy and happiness for the sake of it, because we hear a lot about just be happy and smile all the time, and more finding what it means for that to be real, doing meditations and doing practices until we experience that. And really, it's okay to rely on these practices to get us to the state, because the more we practice getting to the state, the more we're showing ourselves and the universe that we're practicing and we're putting forth effort and we're trying regularly to get to the state. We're not imagining the state and we're not temporarily feeling it. We're putting in the hard ground building effort to create this state in a more permanent way for ourselves. So really important to find these practices that help us with these things, because these are the advanced tools. This is how we bridge the gap and go from, meditation sounds nice, and I think positive thoughts, to I'm a naturally happy person and I generate happiness and I can share happiness with people around me. All right, well, I gotta get going. Wonderful this morning. Hope you enjoyed. Please leave lots of questions below. Anything that you'd like to know more about, anything about today that you want more clarification about, anything that you'd like to hear more about in general. I'm going to try to be doing these a little bit more specific. So today was about building a daily practice, and hope you have a wonderful morning.